All right, guys, so we are going to look at some metric conversions today. So it goes along with the days 13, 14, and 15 in your packet. And I got several questions from today with the day 13 stuff. So I wanted to just stop and make a quick video to go through a little bit of that. And I've got a weird kind of setup here. So if my camera falls over, just ignore that. I'll fix it. Had a little trouble trying to get it, so I'm going to lift up so we can see this a little better. Oh, there's baby me on my bulletin board. So if you look at the units part, we see here in the middle of that, this is similar to the anchor chart that you guys have, just a little different. The unit means it's just one. So our unit could be grams if we're weighing something. It would be liters if we're measuring like the capacity of a liquid, or it would be a meter if we're measuring length or some type of distance. Those are our metric units. And then we can add this prefix onto the front of that. So I could have a decimeter, which means 1/10 of a meter. I could have a centimeter, which is 1/10 of a meter. Or I could have a millimeter, which is 1/1000th of a meter. It could also go the other way, and I could have a decameter, which is 10 times larger than a meter. I could have a hectometer, which is 100 times larger than a meter, or I could have a kilometer or a kilometer, some people say, and that would be 1,000 times larger than that unit meter. All right, so if you look at the pink and green colored arrows going up and down, if I'm going from a big unit to a smaller unit, I have to multiply. So if I go from a smaller unit down here to a larger unit, I'm dividing because it takes less of a bigger unit. So think about if I have pennies and I'm trading those in, like pennies would be my hundredths. I'm trading those in for dimes or whatevers. I would need less dimes to make that same amount of money. And same goes this way. If I'm trading in my dimes for $1, I need less of those. So I'm dividing to get that smaller number, and then it goes the same the other way. If I'm going from larger to smaller, I need more to do that. So the same, like if I have $1 and I want to turn it into tenths and make dimes, I would multiply by 10 to get there. And then if I needed pennies, I'd multiply, again, by 10. So we're going to practice a couple. And this is where that camera might fall. So we will just work together with it. I have it propped up pretty funny up here. And I'm going to try to write around it. We'll see if that works out. Okay, so let's look at the first one. These are similar to the day 13 problems where you're converting meters, kilograms, and liters into these other units. So if I have 2 5/10 meters and I need to go to centimeters. So first I'm going to look back at my chart. My meter is my main unit, and I need to go to centimeters. So I'm going to multiply by 10. I'm going from a bigger unit down to a smaller unit, so I'm going to multiply. I multiply by 10 to get to decimeters, but I need to get all the way to centimeters, so I'll multiply by 10 a second time. And you can do this 2 different ways. And this is why I was hoping I would have a better way to write this, because it's going to be hard to write and not drop my camera, but I'm going to try to lean and stand up here, so I'll give you a little shadow. So I can take my 2 5/10 meters times 10. And when I multiply by 10, normally we say, well, you just add the 0 on the end and that works. But I have a decimal in there, and if I just add a 0 onto the end of a decimal, it doesn't change anything. What I'm actually doing, like if I was doing 1.5 or 1 5/10 times times 10, I'm taking this decimal point and I'm moving it over to the right one place to give myself a larger number. So if I was saying like 15 times 10, we really say I'm adding a 0 to the end. But what happens, there's like an invisible decimal at the end of that number. And I'm still moving it over, and I'm just filling it in with a 0 to get 150. I just don't have to fill anything in. So if I'm doing this, I would move my decimal over one place and I would get 25. But that got me from meters to decimeters. I have to get myself all the way to centimeters, so I have to multiply times 10 again. So I take that 25 times 10, and that gives me 250, because that time I can just add the 0 onto the end. All right, there's another way you can do it though. If you look at my jumps, you can figure out how many jumps you're making and multiply only one time. So I'm making a times 10 jump and a times 10 jump. So if I'm multiplying a number times 10 twice, I can just say, what is 10 times 10? It's 100. So instead of multiplying twice, I can take my 2 5/10 and just multiply it times 100. And so I would be moving that decimal 2 places over and get 250 also in just one step instead of 2. So it's up to you how you want to do that. But that tells me 2 5/10 meters is equal to 250 centimeters. All right, I'm going to fold this down so it's easier to see the other ones a little bit. So now we're going to go from 6 kilograms to how many grams is that? Well, if I look at my chart, I have my kilo all the way up here, and I need to get to this unit, this gram. So are my numbers going to get bigger, or are they going to get smaller? If I look at my jumps, when I'm going down my steps, I'm multiplying so they get bigger. It's like kind of the opposite. If I'm going from a big unit to a small unit, my number gets bigger. If I go from a small unit up to a big unit, my numbers get smaller. Kind of seems a little bit backwards. So if I'm going from kilo down to my main unit, I am jumping down to hecto one time, down to deca the second time, and down to the main unit the third time. So I can multiply times 10 separately. And I'm going to write that real quick. I would do 6 times 10. I know you can't see that. Would be 60. 60 times 10 would be 600. And 600 times 10 would be 6,000. All right, or I can do it like I did that other one and do it all at one time. I can do 6 times 1,000 and get 6,000 right from the start. Okay, and then let's look at this last one. If I have 3 liters and I want to get to milliliters, all right, my liter is that main unit that sits in the middle. And now I've got to go all the way down to milli. So, again, still going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit. So I'm multiplying times 10, times 10, times 10. All right. If I do it separately, like I did with the first one in front of you, I'm saying 3 times 10 is 30. 30 times 10 is 300, and 300 times 10 is 3,000. Or if I do it the other way, I would just go straight from 3 times 1,000 equals 3,000, because I would combine my times 10 3 times. 10 times 10 is 100. 100 times 10 is 1,000. Okay. All right. So there's that part. And I have a little, I guess, kind of a cheat sheet here that we will post online. I'm just going to clip it on with this one and talk through it for just a second. So this is a list of the units that you will see in 4th grade. These are the only ones that we really talk about in 4th grade. We talk about kilo, we talk about the base unit, so meter, liter, gram, or we talk about centa, whatever, or milli, whatever. So if I'm going from a kilogram down to the base unit gram, I multiply by 1,000. This took out all of the extra steps and just tells you straight up what to multiply by. And if I'm going from the unit Like if I have a meter and I want to go to a centimeter, I multiply by 100. If I'm going from a centimeter and want to go down to a millimeter, I would multiply that number times 10. The thing that is not included here that I'm about to add for us is if I'm going from my unit down to milli, that would be times 1,000. And the same if I'm going from a mill, like we just went from a millimeter, or sorry, a milliliter on this page to a liter, and we went that way. But if we were going the other way, we would divide by 1,000 to jump those bigger jumps that aren't listed here. Okay, so there's a little bit of a cheat sheet to help you see a little bit faster, might help you remember a little bit easier. So also if I'm going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, I times by the power of 10. That's where I'm making a times 10 jump with each step that I'm taking. But we just cut out some of those little steps in between, and my decimal is moving to the right because that number is getting bigger because I'm multiplying. Like we skipped, we jumped our decimal here, so moving to the right. Okay, and if I'm going from one of these smaller units to a bigger unit, I divide by the powers of 10 and my decimal moves to the left, so it's going the opposite way because I'm dividing, so I'm getting a smaller number. All right, so we will get this little cheat sheet posted for you guys to help you if you want to check over your work. I am going to send out an answer key for day 13 work to see if that will help you, and you can check over your stuff whenever you get the chance. And then if you still have questions, just let us know and we will be happy to help you. All right. So that is metric conversions.